Hey there, wisdom seekers. Ever wondered why it feels easier and more satisfying to be angry and resentful sometimes? It might even feel more satisfying. But have you ever noticed anger and resentment usually don't produce the results we want other than keeping us upset? Forgiveness, on the other hand, produces immediate results. And yet, one myth about forgiveness suggests it might mean excusing the wrongs that we experience from other people. In today's research and science-based discussion, we'll dive deep into the power of forgiveness. I believe it's one of our superpowers, one of the most underused and misunderstood superpowers we have available to us. I'll debunk that myth and reveal the true essence and liberating power of forgiveness. So welcome to Results Over Resentment, an adult conversation on the power of forgiveness. Before we dive in, I have just two community announcements. First, I want to let you, the community, know that I have been shepherding a family of 9 family members in Afghanistan since April of this year. I can't tell you anything about them because they're in hiding. They're in hiding because the Taliban are hunting them. The Taliban are hunting them because the head of the family served as an interpreter for U.S. Special Operations Forces during the war in Afghanistan. He helped save many American lives. And now, because of that, the Taliban consider him a criminal and want to find him. But that's not all. On one of his missions, the team he was supporting sustained an attack by an IED. He experienced serious injuries, including traumatic brain injury and neurological damage, and he needs medical care as a result of that. So I'm asking for your help to feed, house, and provide medical needs to him and his family during the hard winter months ahead. Since he's hiding for his life, he can't work, and if he can't work, he can't feed his family. It's equally risky to get the medical help he needs, but without it, he struggles to protect his family. So I'm asking you to help me keep this family going while they wait to cross the last hurdle with our State Department so they can immigrate to the United States, legally, I might add. It costs $500 to feed and house this family of 9 for a month. Anything you can offer helps them survive. To donate, please scan the QR code or follow the link in the comments to Project Dynamo, a nonprofit dedicated to helping save Afghan heroes that put their lives on the line for us. In this season of giving, I asked you to give what you can. To ensure 100% of your tax-deductible donation goes directly to this family, please make sure to include the word food in the comments. Thank you very, very much for anything that you can offer. And next, there's still time to sign up for my masterclass next week. This year, 192 million Americans will struggle with loneliness during the holidays. The holidays can be a hard time of year for many veterans and their families, especially the ones that are living with trauma. That's when they're most susceptible to reliving old memories that bring feelings of sadness and isolation rather than joy and connection. So I'm having a masterclass next week, that's geared especially toward helping you thrive through the holidays. I'll talk about how to cure the holiday blues. I'll give you some tools to help you shift your perspective and then set you up for creating your best year in 2024. I'll be making a major announcement that includes a major giveaway this coming week as well. All it costs is 20 to 30 minutes of your time each day, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th of December, to find out how you and the people you love can thrive through the holidays and create their best year in 2024. So just scan the QR code to register. We're going to have some fun, and I think you're going to love this informative event. And please, would you do something for me as well and share this with someone you care about who needs it? I'd be grateful, and I know they'll thank you too. All right, now let's get going. Here is a surprising fact. Forgiveness isn't just about grace. It's scientifically proven path that practicing forgiveness leads to improved well-being, real benefits, real transformation. Why wouldn't anyone want more of that in their life if they could have it, right? Forgiveness decreases stress levels and leads to feeling better. Forgiveness fosters emotional resilience. It helps us bounce back faster from challenges and face adversity with confidence. Forgiveness opens the door to releasing negative emotions and thoughts, which improves mental clarity, helps us think clearer, leads to better decision making, and more positive, growth-oriented mindset. Forgiveness leads to a deeper connection with our higher self, and that fosters our sense of purpose, creates inner peace, and an interconnectedness with others that we so need in this world today. So I just ask you, could you use more of these in your life? Of course you could. Well then, why is it that so many people resist forgiving? No one wants to be someone else's doormat. No one wants to be subjected to the hurtful behavior of another person. So to protect ourselves, we keep our guard up around people and build a wall around our hearts to prevent us from trusting someone and then being sorely disappointed again and again in the future. Sounds normal, right? But here's what research and psychology tells us about that. When we put up a wall around our heart to protect ourselves from being hurt, a couple of things happen. First, that same wall prevents good things from happening, like joy, a sense of aliveness, and the love of others from coming to us. It's a scientific fact. We need love and connection to survive in this world. To be able to meet that need, it requires us to be vulnerable to others. But having a wall around your heart makes that process very, very difficult. And second, the wound that led us to build that wall in the first place remains unhealed. And that actually makes us more vulnerable to getting hurt again. So building a wall around your heart doesn't mean you've done the work of healing that wound. It just means you've built a fortress around it because you believe it'll keep you safe. But feeling safe and feeling whole are two different things. And that's what we're here to discuss today. Because at the end of the day, putting up a wall is ineffective and it's exhausting. It requires so much energy to maintain. And that's energy we're investing in staying a victim rather than building and living our best life. So if this is true, then don't you have a right to be angry when someone does something wrong or unjust to you? Well, you absolutely have the right to be angry at an unjust person or situation. Anger is a natural response to injustice. And good, healthy anger floods us with adrenaline, courage, and the will to make it right. It's also a way we can let someone know they've disrespected our boundaries. Sometimes we have to draw the line with someone and assert ourselves, whether it's taking someone to court for cheating us, fighting for a fair deal in a child custody case, or firmly telling a person to get the hell out right now. But here's the thing about anger. Anger is meant to be a temporary passageway. Anger is meant to be temporary, not permanent. Think of anger as a portal to regaining your wholeness and reclaiming your personal power. You're not meant to live in that portal indefinitely. Its purpose is to help you get to a better place. Unfortunately, many people stay trapped in their anger, and that can lead to resentment and a diminished quality of life. But it doesn't have to be that way. There's absolutely an easier way. People have amazing ideas and amazing missions and visions for their lives to do or achieve something big. And I know that's true for you too. Most often we get stuck because of our own self-limiting actions or beliefs. You wouldn't be here if you didn't have an amazing vision for your life. But let me ask you, why haven't you achieved it yet? Well, for most of you, I believe the answer is simple. It's our self-limiting actions or beliefs that prevent us from making more progress in our life. They keep us from our purpose, from connecting with more people, from serving as a role model, and from making a difference at higher levels. It's really not rocket science. By holding on to anger and resentment, it's like putting our life on hold. Notice I said holding on to these situations, to these emotions. Anger, resentment, guilt, discouragement, disappointment, jealousy, envy, unworthiness, even hatred. All these emotions serve only one purpose, and that is to teach us something about ourselves and our environment. In that way, they have value. But once the lesson is learned or we've made our point, these emotions are meant to be released. It's when we hold on to these emotions that we disempower ourselves. Then, to lock our self-limiting actions or beliefs in, we make someone else the object of our anger and resentment by blaming them for our predicament. This is how we get stuck in life. When we find ourselves in a pattern of disempowering actions and beliefs and keep them in place by making someone else responsible for it. This is how we get in our own way. It's madness. But it's what we humans do. It's the human condition. It's what prevents us from achieving our greatness, from becoming our best self, from having more aliveness and better relationships, better health, or a more fulfilling career. Fortunately, there's a way to break this cycle of self-limiting actions and beliefs. It's forgiveness. Forgiveness is like the antidote that helps us get out of our own way, release the past, and reclaim our personal power. The power we've been giving away when we build walls around our heart. Here's what I really, really want you to understand. And that's the purpose anger and resentment really serves. And that is a lesson will be taught until we learn it. Anger, resentment, guilt, discouragement, jealousy, disappointment, unworthiness, all these emotions serve only one purpose, to teach us something about ourselves and the opportunity to learn the lesson that's unique just to us will show up again and again in our life until we have learned it. Haven't you noticed? You have many of the same life experiences over and over again. Maybe it's work-related, where you just haven't been able to rise above a certain level of achievement, so others keep getting promoted over you. Or maybe you keep getting into one bad relationship after another, and the outcome is always the same, and it leaves you wondering why. It also leaves you judging and criticizing yourself. This is how these emotions we think of as negative have value. They become our compass. They become like a GPS to us. They're simply pointers to a lesson we're meant to learn. That lesson is what stands between ourselves and the amazing vision we have for our life. They become negative when we hold on to them for too long. But they're really neither negative or positive. They're just there to teach us something. They're there for us to pay attention. And since forgiveness is a means to achieving our vision, it's worth exploring deeper. And that's what we're here to do. There are 3 kinds of forgiveness. I'll talk about each one, starting with the kind we probably learned about when we were very young. And our concept about this first kind of forgiveness, I call traditional forgiveness, probably hasn't changed much over time. Traditional forgiveness is like letting bygones be bygones. And that's okay if it works. And sometimes it does on small issues between people. But because we believe that we've been wronged by someone or something, we think of ourselves as victims, no matter how much we try to forgive. So let's look at some of the characteristics of traditional forgiveness so that we're on the same page and we have a clear understanding of what it is. Now, in many of the world's wisdom traditions, forgiveness is based on the idea that when someone wrongs us, they become indebted to us. Until that debt is paid, we remain a victim. And so the characteristics of traditional forgiveness are shown here. It's oriented to something in the past that has happened. Someone wronged us, something wronged us or hurt us in some way in the past. And we have stories about that experience. It's built on a foundation of blame and judgment because of what happened in the past. There is an inherent need to get even somehow because we've been wounded and now we need to get paid back for what happened. It's based on a primary belief that you and I are separate from each other and we have our own lives and they have no connection to each other and no effect. No matter what you or I do, it doesn't have an effect on each other's lives. There is a general overall attitude of guilt and anger and resentment that's built into the foundation of traditional forgiveness. What's more is that reality is based on what I can see, hear, smell, taste, and feel. It's only based on our senses that we use every day in our life. There is an inherent need to try to figure out what happened, to try to find a reasonable explanation for it so that we can find a way to live with what happened, reason our way through it, and find a solution on the other side of it. And that solution we're dependent on exists somewhere out there in the world, often in the person or the thing that wounded us, that wronged us. That these characteristics of traditional forgiveness put us in a consciousness called victim consciousness, where we feel like we're a victim of something that has happened to us. And these are the ideas that are steeped in religious tradition and where true forgiveness misses the mark. When it is dependent on someone else's actions, it gets us into trouble because there's no promise or guarantee the other person will do his or her part, particularly if they're no longer alive. This feeds our reluctance to adopt forgiveness as a practice. And so we leave one unaware of what its true purpose is and what its true capability is for us, how it can serve us, to empower us, and to propel us toward the life we're meant to have. So, what do you think the number one question that keeps people stuck in the past and in their own way. What's that number one question that keeps people stuck? Well, it's simply why. This one question is responsible for keeping more of us stuck than any other because the answers we get never satisfy us. So we get into an infinite loop of asking why again and again and again, never satisfied with the answers that we get, only leaving us feeling more and more and more self-defeated. We did this as kids, remember? Only then we were curious, and asking why over and over again had a meaning, a purpose to it, to learn and to understand our environment. But we do this now whenever we have been so seriously injured, so seriously wronged, and often we're self-critical and judgmental of ourselves as we do this. Why didn't I see this coming? Why did I fail? I promise you, if you've never noticed before, watch what happens next time you ask yourself, why? Why did something happen? Why did that person get the promotion over me? Why did she break up with me? Why did he leave me? Why did he hurt me? Notice if the answers you get satisfy you. Traditional forgiveness doesn't have an answer to this that helps us avoid this trap that keeps us in victimhood. That's not judgment. Stay with me now because it'll get clearer to you that traditional forgiveness makes a good start. It just doesn't get us over the finish line as we learned it. For now, I'm stressing just to consider how often we ask ourselves this little question, because many people aren't taught about the concept of acceptance as an integral part of the forgiveness process. If you've ever found yourself in an endless loop of why questions, here's my challenge to you. Stop being a victim. You are not here to be a victim. I know this is so easy to say and so much harder to do. Believe me, I empathize if you're struggling with this. Here's the key distinction of traditional forgiveness and why we struggle with it so much. It's why forgiveness gets a bad rap overall. Traditional forgiveness is based on the idea of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, meaning when someone wrongs us, they owe us. Until that debt is paid, we remain a victim, caught in a dilemma of desiring to forgive, but needing to condemn at the same time until we get even, until we get sufficiently paid back. That's how we stay stuck in the belief that something bad happened to us and view ourselves as a victim. No matter how much we try to forgive, it feels like a continuous seesaw between two conflicting energies, the need to condemn and the desire to forgive. The more hurt we are, or the more suffering we've done, the more our choice will lean toward needing to condemn. Years of therapy will help, but as long as there is any unresolved regret or pain from the experience, true forgiveness will remain elusive to us, no matter how compassionate or understanding we may try to be about the situation, and no matter how much we try to just let it go and move on. Has anyone told you that before? Just let go and move forward. Just go forward, as though what happened to us is meaningless. That is such a disempowering and disrespectful thing to be on the receiving end of. I know I've been there myself. So in this kind of forgiveness, something's missing. Something feels unfinished about this form of forgiveness. And here's the real takeaway. There is really no freedom from the emotions we're holding on to that get in our way of progress. There's no liberation in staying a victim. Traditional forgiveness keeps us in victimhood because it's an incomplete process. As long as you feel a need to condemn or get even, you can't really be free. True forgiveness is all about releasing the past and feeling free of it. Since traditional forgiveness is built on a foundation of blame and judgment and the need to get even, it's just set up to leave us in victimhood, and it can take years to finally feel free of it. So is it any wonder why so many of us look at forgiveness and say, no thanks, doesn't work, and I'm really not that interested? But it does. And why does this matter? What's the so what about this? Well, no one was born to be a victim. Think about your why statement. Everybody has a why statement. Why are you here? Why do you do what you do? Why are you uniquely positioned to do what you want to do in your life? You will not find any role for victimhood there. And yet, it's a part of your life. Maybe a big part. There's got to be another way, right? Well, there is. And this leads us to the second kind of forgiveness, and that is extraordinary forgiveness. Now, there are people, and they are rare, who have managed to achieve extraordinary levels of forgiveness using the traditional method. And these are people you might see interviewed on TV who found a way to forgive someone that committed an atrocious crime against them or someone in their family. They're wonderful people who have an ability to achieve forgiveness in an extraordinary way and under extraordinary circumstances. And that's why we see them on TV, precisely because it's so unusual. However, it's unusual. And Nelson Mandela is one of these extraordinary people. His story of forgiveness unfolded after 27 years of enduring imprisonment during the apartheid era in South Africa. Despite the immense personal suffering and injustice he faced, Nelson Mandela emerged from prison with a remarkable spirit of reconciliation. His commitment to forgiveness and unity played a pivotal role in dismantling the oppressive system of apartheid and ultimately led to his election as South Africa's president. His extraordinary ability to forgive fostered a path toward healing on a national scale. He's an amazing inspiration to us all. But many of us wouldn't be able to endure what Mandela did and come out of it a better human being, let alone forgive our oppressors. And forgiveness is a superpower that's available to all of us. And that brings us to the third kind of forgiveness, which I call radical forgiveness. Radical forgiveness is not what we learned in Sunday school. It's an advanced form of forgiveness that's available to all of us when we open up to the possibility that life happens for us rather than to us, and that all of life's experiences, good and bad, serve a purpose, and that purpose is always for the highest good of all. With radical forgiveness, it's as if our higher selves actually called forth the experiences that we have for our healing and for our spiritual growth, which means all forgiveness is self-forgiveness, because it's only ourselves that we're harming when we maintain our anger and resentment past their expiration date around the stories of our past experiences of people or situations where we have been wronged. Does that sound like woo-woo? It's not. This is advanced living, and it's available to all of us, including you. So let's take a closer look at radical forgiveness, what it is, and let me explain it to you. Now, radical forgiveness, as I said, it's an advanced form of forgiveness that is oriented toward the future. Where traditional forgiveness was oriented toward the past, radical forgiveness looks forward because it understands that the past is done, and there's nothing that we can do to change it, but we can learn something from it. We can learn something from it, learn the lesson from it, release the story, release the energy and the limiting beliefs around it, and move forward, having benefited from our lessons. Radical forgiveness is based on the premise that you and I are connected to each other, that we share so much in common with each other, that what happens in my life affects yours, and what happens in your life affects mine. And this is true for everyone on the planet. Reality is what we create, and we are creating our reality every moment of every day. Our reality is something that we are living right now in the present moment. But we all aspire. We all have a dream, of an amazing dream, to achieve and have success and to accomplish so much in our life, to have wonderful relationships, to find our purpose, and to make a difference. Radical forgiveness says that we create that reality in the present moment, and we are basing that our plans for making our future on the lessons we have learned from the past. Radical forgiveness teaches that life has meaning and purpose, and that there are no accidents. It is based on an attitude of gratitude for whatever happens, right or wrong, good or bad. We have an attitude of gratitude when we practice radical forgiveness. There is no blame or judgment. There is only something to learn about the situation so that we can learn the lesson and move forward and grow to higher levels of living. Radical forgiveness is based on a firm belief that the solution to life's challenges are within us. They're inside of us. They're not out there. They're all in here. You have answers to every question that you've ever asked about your life, living inside of you right now. You need only to turn inward to find it. The solutions to life's challenges exist within you. And so, complementary to that is surrendering to what is. And that leads us to developing a grace consciousness. Radical forgiveness is built on a foundation of traditional forgiveness. So it honors the world's wisdom traditions, what they teach as such, but it completes the process. So what do you think the number one question is that people who practice radical forgiveness ask? What's that number one question? Well, if we raise our awareness around the experiences we have in life, we'll start seeing the opportunities to grow, and that many of them and the lessons, and see the lessons that many of them contain, and we'll respond to them differently. It's so simple, but that's why so many people miss it and choose not to tap into their superpower. So now let's clear up any assumptions you might be having about what forgiveness is and what it isn't. There are actually 8 things that radical forgiveness is not. First, radical forgiveness does not mean forgetting what happened. Once something happens, it happened. There's no forgetting it. It's stored in our memory for the rest of our life. Next, forgiveness isn't a business transaction. In other words, it's never conditional. If our efforts to forgive or be forgiven ever include a conditional statement like, I'll forgive you if you do something for me, or I'll forgive you if you pay me or give me something in exchange, that's not forgiveness. It certainly is not radical forgiveness. It's a negotiation where someone always wins and someone always loses. Remember, forgiveness can only work if it comes from a higher place within us. That version of us that's interested in something bigger than winning and losing. Radical forgiveness serves the greater good of everyone involved in the situation, not just the one that was wronged. Third, forgiveness isn't about regaining trust. that implies it requires someone to do something for it to work. And that's just not the case. Forgiveness doesn't depend on someone else's words or actions. It's an inside job. Right here is where it happens. Not here, right here in your heart. That's why it's our superpower. And fourth, it's not about letting someone off the hook for wronging us. Whether someone has done something to us or we've hurt someone else, everyone is always accountable for their words and their actions. Next, radical forgiveness doesn't ask us to ignore what happened. We can't ignore it because it'll always be stored in our memory. Radical forgiveness seeks to neutralize the energy we invest in it so that we can channel that energy into higher pursuits, into creating our futures. 6, radical forgiveness doesn't result in instantaneous emotional healing. This is a process that unfolds as we practice it and learn to understand ourselves better and how we're showing up in the world and the behaviors that we can change in order to heal and grow into the person that we're here to become, the best version of ourselves. 7th, radical forgiveness certainly doesn't carry any expectations that we restart a relationship if it has ended. No expectations of that at all. And finally, radical forgiveness doesn't in any way result in giving your power away. Contrary to popular belief, it has the opposite effect. This practicing radical forgiveness empowers you because it releases the past, the investment you've made of energy and time harboring your anger and resentment about something that's happened in the past. It releases the energy around that so that you can reclaim it and channel it into achieving the amazing vision that you've achieved for yourself in your life. Is this making sense so far? Good. Let's see what radical forgiveness is now. It's these 7 things. First, it's a decision. Radical forgiveness is a choice we make to take our personal power back from the anger and resentment we're holding on to about something we cannot change. Second, making the decision to forgive means we see the drain that our investment in anger and resentment has on our energy when we feel the need to be right or get even. Radical forgiveness liberates us from that need. Third, choosing forgiveness is a decision to live our life more on purpose, more deliberately. As you practice it, we experience a shift away from anger and resentment, regret, worry, or guilt to a higher, more positive place within ourselves. Fourth, radical forgiveness drops any resentment toward the person that has wronged us. It refuses to hold a grudge because we understand that holding on to disempowering emotions, any disempowering emotions for too long will deplete us of the valuable life energy we need to make more progress toward the life that we envision for ourselves. Remember, those strong, negatively oriented emotions of anger and resentment and hatred and regret and discouragement and frustration, they're there to teach us something, but then they're there also to be released and let go of just as quickly as possible as soon as you learn that lesson. Next, practicing radical forgiveness is like taking a step toward healing, which leads to better physical and emotional health. Sixth, radical forgiveness is a practice that helps us release energy that's trapped. It's how we reclaim power that we've been giving away when we held on to hurt feelings, resentments, or that need to get even. And finally, practicing radical forgiveness empowers us so we can remove the old roadblocks that have prevented us from growing, achieving more in our life, and deepening our relationships. It opens the door to feeling vulnerable again, which is so essential to meeting our need for love and belonging. See how much control we have on our quality of life that we might have been overlooking? Remember, life always happens for us. It never happens to us. We weren't born a victim. We aren't here to live like a victim. We're meant to learn the lessons we're here to learn so we can create the breakthroughs we need to be happier and more prosperous in our life. Because one thing's for certain, we all have immense potential. Another level of greatness is just waiting for each of us to discover. But it'll only reveal itself when we learn the lessons of the past and release the investment of energy we've made in them so we can grow into the best version of ourselves that we're here to become. Radical forgiveness empowers us to do that. I challenge you to have the audacity to welcome change into your life. We all get a chance at an amazing life that we envision for ourselves. Whether we achieve it depends on how well we overcome our self-limiting actions and beliefs. Be audacious at living your best life. We all have so much more power than we think to break through the self-imposed boundaries we've created. Be the main character in the book that is your life. You're the author, right? You're the captain of your ship, aren't you? Focus on being the best author you can be and writing the best chapters you can write. You can only do that when you release your investment in anger and resentment in past stories about the past that you cannot change. Remember, all things are possible when we practice dropping judgment about how the world looks and works. Forgiveness helps you get out of your own way because it is ultimately about forgiving yourself for holding on to those self-limiting beliefs and actions that hold you back from becoming who you were always meant to become, your very best self.